That's Leonardo Defilippis joining me today on the program. Leonardo, I love what you're saying about discerning, like, okay, what's the right now? What's the right now message? Okay, we're in a time of courageous risk. We're in a time where we're facing big challenges. And it seems to me that one of the risks and challenges that you've taken is discerning and taking action to produce Tolton, From Slave to Priest. And it's an amazing one-man presentation by Jim Coleman about Father Augustus Tolton, a priest in the 19th century, an amazing story about his life in the Chicago area. And this one-man show has taken on a greater prominence in these times. An amazing priest with an amazing life. What was it that drew you to him? What was it that made you sense this ought to be a one-man show that we now are called upon to produce?
Well, years ago, when I was doing St. Maximilian Kolbe at a parish in Springfield Diocese, which is, south of Chicago, where the capital is, and where Father Tolton is from. Back in those days, it was called the Alton Diocese, Alton is on the Mississippi, right next to St. Louis, Missouri. So I was at this parish, and this priest said, "I want you to do a show on Father Tolton." Again, here's the, Father, what am I going to do? How am I going to do How am I going to do a black priest? I can't do that. I'm not allowed to do that. But I put his picture up. I read his book. He gave me a book and holy cards and things of that nature, and I put it on my shelf. And and you see the image behind me. That's the actual image of the real Father Tolton. And then again, I told you about Father Cardinal George, who mentioned how important it was when he was actually giving a talk at the place where he was baptized as a slave. He was a slave, pre-Civil War, and during the Civil War, etc. So I was at the time going to do Fulton Sheen, or I was going to do John Paul II. I was looking at some major saints, Fulton being a future saint. And then all of a sudden I was called by God to do Tolton. I again could feel the Holy Spirit. His eyes are looking at me, and I thought, okay, I don't know how to do this. So Cardinal George got me in touch with Bishop Perius, the Black Auxiliary Bishop of Chicago, and he is the postulator, or postulator is the head of the canonization clause to the Vatican. And so he helped me. Basically, I did all the research, and he gave me all the documents from the canonization process, historical documents of that time, and we put together the show together. And so it's an actual historical, accurate, all the language, everything that was said at that time. And so that attracted me. And it's an incredible story, as maybe a lot of your listeners don't know, but he is the first Black priest. But we have to remember that the church, in the human side of its sinfulness, did not, because of institutional prejudice and slavery in the United States of America, a Black, or as they would call them there, Negroes or colored, was not allowed to be in a religious order or a priest. They weren't allowed. No bishop would allow them, no religious order. So it was complicated. But he had an Irish priest who was a missionary priest, as we know, so many Irish came here, and he didn't have that mindset. He was a missionary to help all people, all races. So eventually what happens, he fights for Father Tolton. So if you look at it today, you have a white guy fighting for a Black guy, okay, from the Emerald Island, and he eventually sends him to Rome. There's no prejudice in Rome, because we've been having every race under the sun for 2,000 years, being trained all over the world. So he sent back, the Pope and the Cardinal sent him back to the enlightened country of America. That's what it was called, and so he sent back to America, the United States of America, and still he had to work through all the different prejudice there, and he eventually dies. But he knew that the Catholic Church established by Jesus Christ was true, and it was meant for all people. And when he went to Rome, he saw the freedom. It's all about freedom. And but people may have looked at his color of his skin but he knew the character of Christ was within each individual. Once he's a priest, he is demanded by Christ to love everyone. There is no segregation. There's no Black Lives Matter or White Lives Matter. It's all lives matter, because that's the mission. Everyone's made in the image and likeness of God. So it's had an incredible, we've been to so many places doing this, Tom. I mean, in terms of completely Black communities, schools, etc., and white. We're going to be coming to your Vietnamese parish, and right there, the first Vietnamese martyrs, which is amazing. They want Father Tolton. And I'm just like, wow, this is amazing. The Hispanics, wherever we go, Hispanic, they want it. Of all things, we went to the Tri-Cities. We're going to major cities, of course, right? And the priest, he organized, we ended up going to Walla Walla and the Tri-Cities and Hermiston on the river. And I'm thinking, why do they want Tolton? They want him because, so what's helping is it's helping the canonization, but it's the only show of its kind in the world. And we're making a film on it too. I mean, a film version of the play. And so I've just been astounded by it, what it has done. And your diocese, the Archdiocese of Seattle, is the first in the country to, maybe the world, to say we got a grant, the St. Joseph Foundation grant, to do shows. That's why we're doing the shows in April and then in the fall, hopefully. But they are allowing us to go to parishes and schools, Catholic schools, and there's no requirements there, as long we're trying to help those who never get anything. Like, how many shows go to Shelton, Washington? I don't think too many, right? But we're going there because we can, and then if we go to a parish that's doing fairly well financially, if they pay, they can pay forward so we can go. So I really ask everyone who's listening, if we can get into your prisons also, and into the poor schools, and to the rich and the poor, because Tolton, again, Father Tolton does not segregate. He doesn't separate. He unites. And because we're called.
No, and Leonardo, his story is so amazing. Folks, if you learn about his story, you read the biography of Father Tolton, you're just struck by his humility. I mean, he is like, he lives on humility throughout his life, and coming back from Rome, ordained as a priest, still constantly being asked to be humble as he exercises his priesthood. It's so striking. And so, folks, you go and see Tolton from Slave to Priest. If you have any possibility of doing that, learn about Father Tolton's story, and you'll see he's a prophetic. He lived a prophetic life as a Catholic priest, as a Black Catholic priest in America. And it seems to me that, for such a time as this, it's another one of those incredibly timely messages. So.
Absolutely. And I think for Seattle Archdiocese in particular, all the troubles you're having in the metro areas with crime and immorality and political injustice and corruption and all these things we're seeing everywhere in this, what we call now, we call it the woke society or whatever you want to call it. But those things were happening during Father Tolton's time too. There's a lot of injustice and division and deception. And so Father Tolton is a great model for our archdiocese here in Seattle.